Yeah, it was, I feel, life-changing. It was so powerful to feel that validation and that there wasn't anything wrong with me, and that all of these things that I hadn't even dared to kind of dream could be for me then became available, and I was living a life that I didn't even know was possible for me.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy approach to non-monogamy. However, it's important to remember that everyone does it a little bit differently, and the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please be aware that we aren't doctors or therapists. Consult the medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Welcome to episode 182. We're Finn and Emma, and today we have a wonderful interview with Jessie and Roy. They've been together for a couple of years and exploring non-monogamy together. Roy has been exploring non-monogamy for about 10 years, while Jessie has only been a couple of years, so she's a little bit newer. But It's a wonderful and beautiful conversation.
Yeah, and we have a great conversation on setting boundaries. And Roy also is a relationship coach. He's started doing that through the pandemic because his job stopped being his job.
Yep.
so he kind of transitioned, and he's been doing some great work. And so we're super excited to get the word out about that. So a couple of things to know. His work is called Open Relating. That's his coaching business. And there will be links in the show notes. There are links in the show notes to his website. But there is a workshop coming up on May 30th. That's this coming weekend, this coming Sunday. And
May 30th, 2021.
Yes. All of the information is in the show notes. It's only like $15, $10 to $15, depending on which type of ticket you pick. And it's also a collaboration with a previous guest we had, Claire from episode 177.
And the workshop is on setting healthy boundaries in non-traditional relationships.
Yeah. And Roy also has a full-blown course that's launching on June 27th. More information on that. So anyway, check out all of his work. It's a great conversation today. Thank you for being here, Roy, and Jessie as well.
Yes, it's awesome. Before we jump into their interview, we do have our normal couple of quick announcements. First up, thank you to everyone who joined our meet and greet last week. We had a wonderful group and so much fun. So if you want to join, which you totally should, join the next one. It's going to be on Wednesday, June 23rd. So we're choosing a Wednesday this time at 9 p.m. Eastern, not Pacific. 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern, that's 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific, and we'd love to have you. It's $10 and open to anyone. Links are on our webpage. Just click on the Meet and Greet tab and sign up.
And a huge, extra huge thank you to everyone who is a part of our Patreon community. If you want to learn more about that, stick around to the outro. We're going to talk about it, but we just wanted to throw some dates out there. Tonight, May 26th, we have our monthly video Q&A. There's still time to join and to be a part of that if you're in need of questions that need answers. If you have questions that need answers, there is one at 9 p.m. Eastern and one again at 9 p.m. Pacific.
And just a quick note on that, we do label them as Q&As, but they end up being lovely discussions around the community, and lots of different topics are brought up. So if you're curious at all, we encourage you just come try it out. And also, the men's and women's group calls. So the men's group call for June is June 7th, and the women's one is June 9th. So again, all of that is on our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Click on the Patreon button, and you can find all that information.
And one last thing we wanted to promote or share as a resource with everybody is our favorite way to get tested for STIs. This is the service that Emma and I use. We've been using it for years, and we're super excited because this year they dropped the price by like $70, which is awesome. It used to be $200. It is now $130 with our discount code. You get a little discount if you use our links in our show notes or at normalizingnonmonogamy.com and click on the resources tab. But anyway, STD check is awesome. We love it. You basically sign up online. You fill out a form, you print it off, or it actually gets sent right to them. You go to like a LabCorp or a Quest. You give them your blood and all of your other bodily fluids they want. And like a day later, you get a text with all of your results in your online portal, and it's it's awesome. It's easy. It's private. You don't have to have weird conversations with your doctor, although you should have these conversations with your doctor. But if you can't, this is a great way to do it. Or if you don't want to go see your doctor every 6 months, if you don't like him that much. Anyway, check it out. Using this resource, using STD Check does support the show financially. So we are hugely grateful for
Use the links on our webpage.
Yes. We are hugely grateful for that. So thank you in advance. And thank you to everybody who has used it. We're super appreciative.
Yes, we really, really, really do appreciate it. Also, before we jump in the show, a quick reminder, go to our website. We always say it way too many times, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Click on the Contact Us button. Send us an email. Send us a voicemail. We'd love to hear from you as always. And if you want to come on the show, we'd love to have you come on the show as well and share your story. So
you could be the next Roy and Jessie.
Yes, you can. And with that, I think we should go talk to Roy and Jessie. Let's go. Welcome to the show, Roy and Jessie. We're super excited that you are here. And thank you so much for reaching out to us.
Yeah, thanks. We're really excited to be here. I've been listening to your show for a long time.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. And, we know a little bit about you. Presumably nobody else does. So do you mind introducing yourselves? And then we can kind of dive into your story and maybe why you're here talking to us on a podcast about non-monogamy.
Sure. So my name is Roy. I live in London, UK. I've been identifying as a non-monogamous or polyamorous for about 10 years. And before that, I've had a couple of decades of monogamous relationships. I'm trying to turn 50, but the COVID is putting a brake on trying to actually celebrate it. So until I can properly celebrate it, I'm not yet 50.
It doesn't count. Yeah, it doesn't count. COVID birthdays don't count.
Exactly.
I hear you.
But COVID did bring about a big change in my life because I've been put on a furlough from work, and I've started looking into other things that I was interested in and where my passion lies. And I started training in psychotherapy and became a coach to work with people who are exploring non-monogamy. So yeah, a very big change going on. And I'm feeling I'm on this brand new journey now.
Yeah, that's exciting. Well, we'll definitely dig into that a little bit more because I want to hear about that.
Yes.
And thanks for the intro and thanks for being here. And how about you, Jessie?
Hi, I am Jessie. And I'm in my late 20s, living in London with Roy. No, not with Roy. In the same city. We don't live together. And I guess I've been non-monogamous, practicing non-monogamy for about 2.5 years, but had pushed away monogamy for about a year before that. So it took me a little while to discover polyamory after sort of firmly deciding that monogamy wasn't the right fit for me.
Right.
So,
you knew monogamy wasn't it, but you didn't know what it should be or what it could be.
Yeah, I'd heard, I'm sure I'd heard of polyamory, but it had been years ago. I didn't know anyone. So it kind of took a while of just kind of, I don't know, trying different things before I finally met a bunch of poly people and everything sort of fit into place at that point.
Yeah, that's exciting. I think so. I think what would be awesome is to first of all hear how long you two have been together and maybe how you met. But then also, it sounds like Jessie, you've been polyamorous or exploring non-monogamy for just a couple of years, and Roy, closer to a decade. So maybe hearing your sort of individual journeys into this, and then sort of what it's looked like for the two of you as a team.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's very interesting that there's a generational difference here in terms of the accessibility to information about it. So when I was in my 20s, I didn't know there was any other option other than, monogamy. And I defaulted into long-term monogamous relationships, and I was married. And at some point in my marriage, we did try to have an open relationship, but it was more about, let's save our relationship because it's not working by sleeping with other people. And that didn't really work. So, it took me a few what I considered failed relationships at the time to get to the point of wondering if there's another way. And that was around maybe 11 years ago, after my kind of a breakup from another long-term monogamous relationships. So at that time, I was dating, online dating, and basically being open and honest about the fact that I'm not exclusively dating, but I didn't really have any word or vocabulary for it. And I met someone online, and in our first date, she explained to me that she's non-monogamous and that she wants everything to be open and transparent, and she just doesn't want to do monogamy. It's she was divorced, and that wasn't for her. And I just heard that. I really liked her, and I wanted to keep seeing her. So that was basically her boundary, right? And I wanted to explore and understand what that might feel like. And logically, it all made sense. And once we started dating, and I realized I can also date other people and just talk to her about it, and I can go traveling and share with her my adventures and flings and things like that. It just, I realized that it's been in me all along. And part of the reason why I always felt a little kind of unsatisfied and unfulfilled in monogamous relationships was because of that, because I'm not monogamous. And over the years, I've explored different dynamics of non-monogamy, including open relationship, hierarchical polyamory, non-hierarchical polyamory. And I learned a lot from them. I did have one 3.5-year relationship where we lived together and we were polyamorous, but there was a lot of toxic behavior and struggles there because our values didn't align. And I kept trying to make it work because I didn't have enough knowledge of how to really make polyamory work. So that ended pretty badly, but I did learn a lot from that. And I met Jessie about 2.5 years ago. And just after, maybe a few months after that breakup, and after a few months of therapy, and the way that we started dating, the communication we had in the beginning with Jessie and with my other partner was totally different, and showed me that there is actually a way of making polyamory work without the drama, without the pain and the struggles, as long as the communication is really clear and our individual boundaries are well thought out and well communicated. So the last 2.5 years were amazing. And I identify, if you put a label on it, as solo polyamorous. I do really dig the values of relationship anarchy. I wouldn't say that I subscribe to the entire philosophy, but I do really appreciate the values. And I guess that brings us up to date in terms of my non-monogamous journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and thank you for the overview. When you met that woman back at the beginning, and she was like, "Hey, you said you want to be seeing her," but she was like, "Here's my boundary. My boundary is we're going to see other people." How did that shift for you work? Because that's kind of a big revelation, if you haven't really ever done that before.
Yeah, it is. And I have to say, I've never been a jealous person, and I always really enjoyed seeing somebody flirt with my partner and giving them attention. And I just felt kind of almost flattered, I've got good choice in women because other men also like them. And in that sense, I just thought, that makes total sense, and I'm not quite sure about it, but I'm willing to give it a try. And of course, initially, I was still in this kind of programming of monogamy, so I did always thought, is it actually okay? But I would check in with her, and she would give me reassurance because she had a bit more experience, and that was really helpful.
Yeah, and so it sounds like you said, though, that there were some other relationships after that were maybe a little more challenging, and there were some toxic pieces, and probably some learning along the way of what you need to, who you need to be, and how you need to show up in order to make these things work.
There's a lot of learning what not to do. So making all the mistakes. So I now know what they are and what happens when you're making those mistakes. And internalizing and processing these lessons is super important because it's very easy to get into a cycle where you're repeating toxic behavior. But I feel that I've really learned and integrated that through therapy as well. That was also really important. And specifically because I found a therapist that was herself poly and kinky and really understood where I was coming from and didn't judge me for any of that.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing any of those lessons that you learned? I'm sure there's a lot.
There is a lot. Let me think. So one of the important things is about really knowing what you want. What are your boundaries? I came into that specific relationships without clear boundaries because it was the first polyamorous live-in hierarchical relationship. So I didn't know what I wanted from that. And I just had this image in my head of us living together, but having our own independent lives and other relationships and just talking about everything openly, but not realizing that my partner had, her own insecurities and anxieties around that and that I wasn't aware of. But, and then she didn't necessarily maybe even know to tell me what they are. But if my boundaries were clear in terms of this is how I practice, polyamory, and so if they were that clear at the beginning, then if something happens where she reacts negatively to something I do or to something I will say I want, then I won't just say, okay, we'll do it your way, even though I don't really believe that that's the right thing. So stepping back from my own boundaries because they're not firm enough and going along with something, agreeing to say an agreement that's really about protecting her needs, but compromising mine, right? So I think that when you're doing it in the beginning, it feels okay because there's a lot of new relationship energy and you're excited about it and you want to make it good, kind of make it work. But longer term, that it becomes much, much trickier afterwards to come up with these issues and say, actually, you know what? I don't agree with the way we're doing it and I want to change, because then the reaction will be like, but you've already done it and this is how I want it that way. So yeah, and I've repeatedly, I think, compromised, and it did something to my soul because I wasn't living my authentic self. Mm-hmm. So I think a lesson there is to, really focus on being your authentic self, even if it risks like creating an issue, because you want to deal with these issues, early on in the relationship. Another lesson is understanding that your values align. There are so many different ways of doing polyamory. And just because you're both polyamorous doesn't mean you're going to be compatible and it's going to work. And just because you might work out when you're dating and seeing each other once a week doesn't mean you can live together, right? Mm-hmm. And make it work, for example. I've learned that lesson too. So, talk about your values and talk through scenarios where your values might be challenged. I think that I've learned that.
Yeah, those are very powerful and very front of mind.
Yes, most definitely.
So thank you for that. And then I think maybe, Jessie, it'd be wonderful to hear how you got here. And it sounds like the two of you met right at the beginning of your
journey.
Yeah, we met at the start of that. I'll go back a little bit though. I guess I had quite a long-term monogamous relationship from when I was 18, and was very much in love and sort of expecting things to last, but always felt so drawn to other people and kind of sexually interested and romantically interested, and I felt these really strong pulls towards other people, and I just felt so guilty about it, and at the time I just spent those years kind of in the back of my mind just questioning whether I was able to love right, and having a lot of guilt around not being able to sort of completely focus on one person. And we ended up breaking up, I guess, for not for directly related reasons. I just felt like we had grown apart but that kind of feeling of, I guess, being a bit unfulfilled and that feeling of being pulled in sort of different directions at the same time really stuck with me, and being like, that's just not what I want. And I can't see myself being happy with just one person. And
I just want to say that it's interesting because I've held the same things when I was younger, but I just felt I had no choice. I had to accept the narrative and just deal with it. And I just thought, the problem was with me, but I'll somehow kind of pretend that I'm okay with it.
Yes. But yeah, I guess. So after that, I was like, right, monogamy is not for me. I'm just gonna sort of sleep with as many people as I can. Like, that'll be my thing instead. Just casual sex. That's like the opposite of monogamy, right? And
you have to go. You have to go to the opposite. You can't find the middle ground.
Right.
In my mind, that was the next logical sort of step. So I did that for about a year, and I found that, again, very unfulfilling, because either some of the other people would develop these kind of feelings for me and ask me to be sort of exclusive. And I'd get frustrated because I would always be very clear from the beginning that that's not what I was looking for. And so they would get hurt, or I would sort of develop feelings, but because they wanted to be seeing it's not that I didn't want them to see other people, but they wouldn't have the reciprocal feelings because for them it was just very casual. So I kind of felt like that there's no way to do that without one of the people getting hurt. And then I ended up at a sex positive festival, quite by chance, and because of a connection with someone from my dad, actually, but quite a few degrees of separation from my dad. So that makes it a bit less weird. But yeah, found myself at this sex positive festival, and all of a sudden I was talking to all these non-monogamous people who were living these lives that I didn't realize was actually kind of possible. So I met my ex-partner there. We started dating, and then I also met Roy there, but we didn't start dating until a few months after that. And then so I was with this other person for 9 months, and then we broke up, and then I've been with Roy sort of since.
So there were a few months of overlapping as well.
Yeah.
Are you able to name drop the sex positive festival? Like, does it still happen? Maybe not with COVID, but like, is it still in existence?
Hopefully, it's called the Summer House Weekend. I've gone, I think, for 4 or 5 times in a row, but it didn't happen last year, but I hope it'll continue.
Yeah. What is that? I mean, just because I'm just curious. What does it look like? Yeah.
So it's camping, camping, but with showers, and it's a few days, like a long weekend, I think. And there are lots of different workshops, a lot of them quite vanilla, some, yoga, like breathing workshops or laughter workshops, and then kind of getting into more kink workshops, and then play parties in the evening. A dungeon. There's like queer only kind of spaces, queer play parties, and then anyone can enter play party spaces.
Yeah. It's kind of part spa because they have also sauna and hot tub and things like that, and it's part a party place, part education workshops and talks that are related to sex positivity, sexuality, and things like that. Yeah, and it's trying really hard to also be very inclusive and diverse. But it attracts people that are also quite diverse, and some of them are, I guess, very new to everything, and some are. So you may have swingers, you may have burners and hippies, and people who just are looking for something different. But yeah, I think it's a good melting pot in that sense.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense here to kind of start talking about your journey together. So you met and you were dating. So Jessie, you were dating someone else at that time, but you two started dating as well. And how has your journey progressed in your relationship?
Oh, it's hard to kind of define all in one go.
Take your time.
No. It's been, I don't know. At the start, it was very sexual. And at least, for me, I think because of the age difference, I sort of had a bit like compartmentalized it a bit in my head, or maybe like defined it as, just sort of some casual sexual fun. And then I sort of accidentally fell in love. And it was like, kind of did question things with the age gap, but then it just became really clear that that was the only thing that was giving me pause, and that everything was fantastic. And so to kind of push that away just because of one thing was a bit silly, and the relationship was worth a lot more to me than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it gave me pause as well, because when I met Jessie, I didn't really know how old she was, and I generally, when I meet people, I don't ask them for their age. That's not the important thing. My past relationships, I've been with women who are older than me, same age, younger. I don't really consider that that's an issue. But
we didn't mention age for quite a while. I think the feelings were already there, and then when we compared ages, we were both a bit like, oh, that's a bigger gap than we both thought. Does it matter? No.
I think it matters in the sense of being aware of it and recognizing the dynamic, the power dynamic that exists, and knowing that it's there. And then when you know, then you can basically avoid things that, some certain pitfalls. It's not just age, because age represents an income gap, experience gap, social capital, and and how many people you know on the scene and things like that. So there's a bunch of stuff that's involved, and it's really important to name them. And I think we did a pretty good job with that.
Yeah,
I say so myself.
I think so.
Do you two ever get pushback or questions about it, like that maybe like people treat you slightly differently because there is an age gap?
You were a bit aware, concerned and anxious, kind of self-aware of that when we were out in public, I remember, in the beginning.
Yeah.
But
I'm quite aware of it in sort of public, very public spaces like the train.
Yeah, but I have to say that we are, I think, lucky to live in such a cosmopolitan, diverse, and liberal city like London. And our community specifically is the kind of burner community, sex positive community. People are very accepting, very non-judgmental, very open, and I think that they don't look at things like age. They look at who you are as a personality, and whether you are caring, whether you're social, whether you basically are a good person. So in that sense, I haven't felt any.
No, I've never had any comments or bad treatment that I've noticed. It's more, I think it was just more internalized, like from myself.
I appreciate that. And I was also curious, I know we kind of dug into like, Roy, when you started exploring non-monogamy, like sort of the shifts that happened for you. And Jessie, you talked a little bit about like, you were kind of feeling all these things, but you didn't know there was really like another way to do it as well. And then you met all of the poly people at the festival. Like, What did that look like for those first couple of months or first year afterwards, where like you're starting now like a whole new framework of how relationships can work?
Yeah, it was, I feel, life-changing. Or it was so powerful to feel that validation, and that there wasn't anything wrong with me, and that all of these things that I hadn't even dared to kind of dream could be for me then became available. And I was living a life that I didn't even know was possible for me. Like a better, having better relationships and experiences than I knew about. And it wasn't, I guess it's sounding very positive, and overall sort of for my life, it was very positive, but there was still a lot of difficult moments in it. And there still are. Like, polyamory isn't all a walk in the park. There's like a lot of work that comes with it, but it all just felt so worth it because it just felt so right. And
what were some of the challenges you came up against?
I think the person that I was with was more experienced. So not Roy, this other person was kind of more experienced than me in polyamory, but I didn't now is kind of questioning how poly he is. And at the time he had a lot of insecurities. So trying to navigate and learn about what polyamory is with someone who had quite inconsistent reactions to things depending on sort of his moods. I found that very sort of confusing. And I guess I modeled trying to figure out what's okay and what's not, because he was my first experience with it. And so he would get upset about me doing things. And then sort of Roy might do a similar thing to me that I did to upset him. Like, Roy would do the same thing to me, and then I would get upset. And then we would sort of talk about it and realize, actually, I'm only feeling upset because he was, and so I feel like that's the reaction. And it kind of took a bit of taking a step back and being like, what are my feelings and what are my boundaries, rather than just kind of copying what was there and modeling off of somebody else.
It's you see a lot of times when people, I guess, jump into non-monogamy and find that it just works. They think it works for them better than monogamy because monogamy didn't work for them, but not necessarily taking the time to explore who are they authentically, right? And really what do they want, and whether it's the right thing for them. It's just that it's the other alternative, so we'll just go with that. But if you don't address the core issues around insecurity, around various attachment, styles, etc., then the same patterns will repeat, whether it's a monogamous or non-monogamous relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in the end, that's kind of why we broke up, me and this other guy, because just realized that we weren't as compatible as we thought. And it's that thing where just because we were both polyamorous doesn't mean that we were wanting the same things.
Yeah, that's an important point, that being polyamorous doesn't necessarily mean that your wants and needs overlap.
Yeah.
And also, like you said, like you were judging what was quote unquote right and wrong based on their reactions to your behavior, and then you were just translating that across the board without even being like, well, that doesn't actually bother me. Being like, well, it bothered him, so
so it's wrong for some reason, without kind of doing that critical thinking of wait, why is it wrong? What's wrong here? Oh, nothing, I guess, for me. So, yeah.
Do you mind sharing if either of you have other partners now and what your relationship looks like at the moment?
Yes, I'll go first because mine is shorter. I did have another kind of casual partner, but they broke up with me yesterday. So
I'm sorry.
It's that thing where it's sad and it kind of sucks, but actually I do think it's for the best for both of us. Sort of, I guess the pandemic did sort of change what we were both looking for, and we kind of went in different directions. And it wasn't a super serious, like we weren't in love. So I'm fine.
But
so now
it's still hard.
It's still hard.
Yeah. Yeah. But
And now you're available.
now, I guess, I was available.
You have more time, at least.
Yeah, I guess I have more time. So right now, just Roy, but not just in like a negative way. But.
Well, so I have another partner that I've been seeing exactly the same length of time as Jessie. We actually started seeing each other at the same weekend. We all kind of connected at the same party. So that's been really interesting because that's never happened to me, where two relationships developed in parallel right from the beginning, And I think that actually made it easier because they met, they knew of each other, and I think that made it easier to communicate what was going on. And then let's see, I recently started seeing another person in the last few weeks, so that's quite new, and still don't know, where that will lead. And before the pandemic, I had a few comets around the world in different cities. I used to work in a job that basically took me traveling quite a bit. So it was possible to maintain a connection, but I don't know what will happen with that. We haven't seen each other in such a long time that it's difficult to maintain the long distance relationships.
Totally.
Yeah. COVID. Damn COVID.
Sad.
I'm just nosy and curious about, like, you've developed these two sort of parallel relationships, and you said you like a lot of the values in the relationship anarchy, but maybe you don't ascribe to all of them. I guess, and not that our podcast is a designator of who is a primary versus, a secondary, whatever terminology you want to use, but you and Jessie are here together. Have those relationships developed at different intensities, maybe, is the actual question.
I mean, they definitely develop at different intensities because they're different people and they have different intensity levels, and the way I am with each one is different. My other partner is much more private and has a different lifestyle, so and different needs for time together and things like that. So it does look different.
Yeah.
But I don't really believe in ascribing kind of labels of primary, secondary, and things like that. I think that each relationship stands on its own merit. That's what I like about relationship anarchy as a value.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I love that. And I wasn't trying to paint you into a box. I was trying to ask the question and not use all sorts of offensive words to the relationship anarchists, but I got close enough. Yeah.
How open are you to in your life with friends and family about your non-monogamy journey, and how has that been received?
I think you should start first.
I'm incredibly open. I've told, literally everyone. Like, my nan thinks it's fantastic. I think she thinks it's a bit of a phase, but she's very sort of supportive of, like, oh, you young people, just doing what fits you and doing what feels good for you. So she's very supportive. My friends are pretty supportive. I started a new job like a month ago, and in my third week, asked every 2 weeks, people will do a talk on something, on any topic sort of outside of work. So I gave a talk on non-monogamy at my sort of 3rd week of being there.
Wow.
So
Cool.
I was going to say, that takes guts.
it went really well. And it wasn't to the whole company, it was to sort of my team of 20 people.
Still
but yeah,
pretty significant.
It was very well received. I don't know. I'll work my way up.
Yeah. That's amazing. Actually, that's really bold. That's amazing.
I just kind of shout about it and then just like, if you don't like it, just get out my face. But
I really admire Jessie's tenacity in that way, For me, it's been a slow burn. When I first started, I was trying to kind of keep it more of a private thing, and I just didn't feel it was anybody's business. And I was a bit concerned about on the work side and business side, but I think over time I just got used to it. I'm hanging out with a lot of people who are either non-monogamous themselves or very kind of accepting. And then I think that maybe about 3 years ago, I gave a talk about toxic masculinity and back in my home country, Israel, where I grew up. And that was like in front of 300 people. So I thought, and it was going to go on YouTube. So I thought my mom might hear about it, so I better like tell her, because I was going to use polyamory as an example of how I learned to recognize and deal with, and kind of combat toxic masculinity. That polyamory gave me a lot of tools for that. So I took it for lunch and told her, and I was actually quite surprised how kind of easy she took it. She wasn't really fazed. She's just like, yeah, whatever is good for you if it makes you happy. She was actually concerned about our age gap. And more in the sense of like, if Jessie wanted children, what will happen and stuff like that. But
she isn't quite fully understanding polyamory.
No.
If I wanted children, then I would find someone to have children with.
Because obviously, if you're my partner, she just, from her point of view, that's and then since then, I've just been pretty open about it, and now that I have a website and where I tell my story, and I do, I write a blog and I do Instagram lives and things like that. So yeah, it's pretty public.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing both of that.
Yeah.
Or all of that. Both of that.
Both of that.
Man. Sometimes I get tongue-tied too.
I know.
Yeah.
So just you've kind of like talked about how you shot it from the mountaintops, which is amazing. And I think it also kind of speaks back to what you said when you like showed up at the Sex Positive Festival. Like you learned all of these things because like it's not like we touched on earlier, like you went from monogamy to like, well, the other option is sleeping with everybody for like a year. And it sounds like you found that there was more than that. And not that there's anything wrong with either of those paths, but you found that there was more, and you found something or lots of things that you were interested in, found more fulfilling. Like, do you mind talking about like, what are some of those things you found? And then I'm assuming like, Roy, you've also found some of that as well. Like you both have mentioned kink a little bit, and maybe that plays into it.
Oh man, yeah. I don't know where to start. I guess just the love and the care that you can get, and sort of breaking down what relationships mean. And that's with sort of friendships as well. So I guess kind of falls a bit more into relationship anarchy, and being able to really think about what you want from a relationship with a particular person, and kind of whatever you can think of, as long as the other person is also happy for it, kind of you can, that goes, you can have that. So rather than having to sort of let go of relationships where there's one aspect that's sort of not working, kind of with monogamy, or having one person to have to fulfill everything for you, or, letting go of certain desires or needs so that you can be with that one person. it doesn't work like that. So just being able to be so creative with the relationships that you have with the people in your life, I found really eye-opening, especially because of what it tells you about yourself. And
I think it gives you permission to explore a lot more, no?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And kink was a big part of that as well, where I never really met kinky people either, and had tried it with sort of other people that weren't really into it. I guess just sort of asking them, and people would sort of do role plays or do bits like kinky things because I'd asked, and it was never very enjoyable. So again, I kind of thought, oh, I guess I'm not kinky, or I guess that's not really for me. And then met actual kinky people who got joy from the things that I wanted as well. And then that was also a massive game changer. Like, oh shit, I guess I really am kinky. I was just doing it with the wrong people. You know, I guess the other person actually has to enjoy it as well. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. That's, I mean, so I similarly, I think when I first found out about non-monogamy, I had this phase of, oh my God, I can basically have sex with all people and it's all okay, you know? And interestingly, when you're partnered, I seem to be a lot more attractive to women than when I was single. So, you know, having that, and being able to act on it, got me quite excited about being more experimental and, kind of going maybe a little bit too, not too much, but just like having a lot of connections with different women. And that kind of over time toned down because I learned to value the depth of the connection a lot more and getting to know people deeper, creating something together. Kind of quality over quantity, let's say. Not that there's anything wrong with either, but it's been a journey. And thanks to being open and being able to explore different things with different people, I also discovered kink because it was not with my first non-monogamous partner, but it was with someone else. So yeah, if I was monogamous, maybe I wouldn't have gotten there, right? So I think that I also owe that to non-monogamy. And both kink and polyamory, I think, what they share in common is this this concept that everything is open, you know, that your creativity or imagination can take you anywhere. The only boundary is your own needs and your own kind of safety and of the other person that you're engaged with. And I think that's really beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree.
Think it is really beautiful. Do either of you see, I guess, your relationship styles changing in the future? I know it's like an impossible question.
Yeah.
Personally or between us, I guess that's kind of the same.
I mean, our relationship has changed.
For sure.
It has changed several times. And I suppose some of it was an external influence, like, you know, COVID and the pressures around that definitely, I think, changed in different ways. I think largely positive because we ended up spending a lot more time together. We even lived together at some point. So emotionally, maybe we got closer. But also it presented a lot of psychological pressures on both of us. For me, it was about, you know, not working for a long time, and Jessie was other anxiety. So that, I think, was a challenge. I don't see myself ever going back to monogamy, but I don't really know, and I don't really care to know or to have too much of a plan of how non-monogamy, how it will look like in the future. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited about it changing, and I know it will change, and that's okay. I think that training myself to accept and welcome change is part of my journey, part of my work.
Yeah, I guess kind of very similar. I don't tend to think very much about the future because I find it too stressful. If you have I'm not very good when plans change. If I have a plan or an idea that something's going to happen, if that doesn't happen, I can find that quite difficult. So if I had I think having a plan would limit me in a lot of ways. And so I don't think about it. I just sort of, stuff will change for sure. And I have no idea in what way, but.
I think maybe building on sort of that discussion of like changes and where and that type of thing is like, how have each of you seen each other grow and change, in the last 2.5 years since you've been together?
I've really seen Roy just go for what he wants in a kind of really fearless way, especially with COVID kind of making things difficult. And he's a very sociable person. I think it hit him a lot harder than me. I'm an introvert who likes to spend a lot of time by herself. So was a bit easier for me to adjust and to just see how hard that hit Roy like at the beginning, and to see everything that he's made from it, like taken that really difficult situation and then kind of put all your effort into this course and your training, because you weren't happy with your job when we first met either. So I'm just massively sort of inspired by your drive and dedication when things are really hard. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I met Jessie, she was kind of like a deer in the headlights. Everything was so new and fresh and shiny, and it was really fun. And I think initially we did look at our relationship as being about fun and excitement and kind of exploring stuff together. And then I kind of realized I was falling for you. And I remember telling you, that I love you. I don't know, it was maybe about 4 months in or something. And one thing about that experience was, I felt for me was also a growth, but I know we're talking about you, but
no.
Is that I told her that I love her, but it's totally fine for her not to feel the same and not to tell me that, that I'm not like looking for reciprocity. I just want to express how I feel. And I've seen you in the last few years just become this amazingly strong-willed and like boundaried person. And like the way you've learned from your relationships and the way you've learned from your experiences and apply that, how you are now setting boundaries with people and for yourself, and really, you've always been really good at communication, right? But it's just gotten better. And that's really helped me, because I feel in the past I wasn't so good at communicating, and having someone who is very clear how she communicates was really useful. And I'm really admire the growth you've had. Yeah.
Thank you.
And also like your sense of adventure. I think that's definitely come out a lot, and I really like that.
That's exciting. And thank you.
I love hearing that. It's really fun to share. One thing you touched on, which I don't know why I'm circling back on this, but was boundaries. And, in so many relationships, it can be tricky to identify and then communicate and understand, like identify and understand and then communicate your boundaries. Do either of you have any thoughts on how you handle that, and how I don't want to say advice, but maybe just tips for handling boundaries? That's the same thing as advice.
I wasn't going to say that. I was just going to
maybe say, I should rephrase to say, do you have, like, what are your thoughts on creating
experiences?
Boundaries?
Yeah, the experiences you've had.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of tips because that's part of my course, actually.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Part. But, well, in our relationship, I think it's really about knowing how to communicate how you're feeling in the moment, and kind of knowing to differentiate between the feeling in the moment and the general connection. For example, Jessie might say, I'm not feeling like having sex tonight. And I don't need to read into that some kind of rejection or some kind of like fear that she doesn't want to have sex with me anymore, right? It's like I need to know how to listen to her and accept that, accept just that, her words, and not read my own story and imagination into it.
But it's about trust and kind of building up that trust that when your partner does say, everything is fine, I'm just not feeling very well, or like to know that they mean that rather than them, I guess saying one thing and meaning another, kind of saying, oh no, I don't, I'm not into that right now. It's not you. And then months down the line, you find out that wasn't quite true.
Yeah. So I've experienced in the past relationship a lot of things that were happening behind my back that I didn't know about, where I thought things are a certain way and then realizing, no, I got it all wrong. And that kind of, I guess, gaslighting is very damaging because then you're starting to second guess yourself. And I'm really happy I had the time of therapy before starting new relationships. So yeah, believing your partner. And that goes both ways, right? Because if you know your partner is taking you at your word, you have to be very genuine and authentic with your word. So that's important.
I think what helped me a lot with setting my boundaries was how strong you were or are with your boundaries, and how actually sort of nice and almost, I don't want to say relaxing, that's not right, but how easy it made things when I realized that you aren't going to do things for me that you don't want to do and then resent me for it. To see the real positives of someone setting their boundaries and not agreeing to things that you don't want to do to please me. Yeah, it kind of made it really obvious that as the other person, I preferred that. And then that really helped. Because I feel a lot of guilt, kind of, I want to please my partner and I want to do things that's nice for them. But being on the other side, just made me realize that it's actually better for both people to have those boundaries and to stick to them.
I think it's important to also recognize where the boundaries are in what realms. You have boundaries around physical touch and intimacy, boundaries around maybe financial issues, and this is something that because of our age difference also can be an issue because we have different income and maybe not so much anymore, but we did before the pandemic.
Yeah, I got a raise.
Boundaries around knowing, actually I can't go out to these restaurants and stuff because I'm saving money right now, and I don't want you to pay for me all the time. But if I say choose, and I'm saying I am happy to pay, that is again something that I'm doing, say, as a gift. I'm not expecting anything from that exchange, right? So being kind of clear about that. I like that you also had boundaries, say, around spaces where you were worried about being triggered by certain things that if I was interacting with other women, and then I'm not going to necessarily have to change my behavior, but I can communicate to you what I think might happen or what I want to do, and then you make a choice of whether you want to be in that space or not. And you honored yourself in that sense.
So what that would look like then is rather than Jessie saying, no, you can't go do X, Y, or Z, it's go do that, but I don't feel comfortable being there, so you're going to do that on your own. And then, Roy, you have to be like, well, do I want to go do it on my own, or do I want to be with Jessie? And then you both have to like say what you want, and then you come to some type of compromise that makes you both feel good in that situation.
Yeah, there's a few examples I think that maybe help to illustrate. Like, for example, if there's a party and I have another partner there and Jessie, then, we make that decision. And I don't have to necessarily worry that it's going to be a crisis, because it's just will make her more comfortable to not be in that space. I make the decision for myself that this is a party I want to be in. Or another example is when I saw Jessie with another person, and it was at a party, right? And as much as I was very supportive of her being there with him and doing whatever she did, I still felt some kind of twinge of, I don't know, insecurity, fear, whatever. And it was not very big, but I did feel it in my body, right? So when she came over to me afterwards, she wanted to connect with me, because I think it was the first time this happened, maybe, no? Or that's in a public setting. And she wanted to kind of connect with me and maybe to show me that everything is okay, kind of thing. But at that moment, I felt that I didn't want to be so close. And I actually told her I need some time alone for, wasn't that long, but I needed some time, and I couldn't just like right away be intimate with her. And I communicated that, and then we waited a bit, and then everything was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think too, it's important how that gets communicated too, right? Like, and I don't know exactly how you said it, right? But like, for me, it would be like, yeah, Emma, you didn't do anything wrong, but it hit me and I need to process this. So just give me a little bit of time versus like, well, you were doing this and it was, and now I need to go like, think about what you did. Kind of.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
I was very clear to tell her that she did nothing wrong and that everything is fine. It's just that I'm dealing with something. I'm processing.
Yeah.
And
that can be hard.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for those examples. I think it was really good too. What I was going to ask earlier is like maybe talking a little bit about what you mean by boundaries. And we kind of did that because I think people, when they hear boundaries, they go to like immediately thinking like, we only do this and this act together, or like they're thinking those types, but it's a lot more around.
It's not just physical acts.
Yeah, it's not physical acts. It's also just like there's so much that gets wrapped up in like you said, like not doing a ton of things for somebody else that you don't want to be doing, but you're just doing them to make them feel good, and then you find out that you're getting resentful, and then they find out that you're resentful, and they're like, "Well, I didn't want you to be doing that for me anyways. If it was just making you feel like shit." And so it's like nobody wins.
Yeah.
In that.
I think it's probably different if, say, it's a couple that opened up the relationships because they were so used to one way of doing things and a particular dynamic. Mm-hmm. And when that starts being questioned, it may not be at the same pace. We started while seeing other people, and I think a lot of that was just like given. This is just how our relationship is going to be. And sometimes as you get more intimate and closer, that might get more difficult. And I think that the way we dealt with that is by never kind of relaxing into a false sense of like monogamy security. Or I think that we talk about this a lot. We share things about our other dates and other people we're seeing. It stays alive in our relationship as well. So it's never an issue of contention. Mm-hmm. And it's also obviously important for logistical reasons to know, like, who, when we have available time and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, we wanted to, before I do my final question, I want to ask, do you have a blooper that you would be willing to share? We like to ask our guests if they have a fun blooper. It can be sexual or not, but basically that to show that relationships don't always go as planned.
The funny thing, it's not a blooper, but when I first met Jessie, I was really attracted to her and I kind of spoke to her and I tried to engage with her and she totally ignored me. And she doesn't even remember that ever happening. Right? So the first time I met Jessie is not the time that she met me because she met me later on the beach when we talked. But she has no memory of it.
Yeah, and I guess, so I have no memory of Roy, trying to talk to me. But when I guess, met him later on, it took me months of flirting with him before anything happened. Oh, and then I guess we went to a party. This was before we were together, but Roy offered to kind of put me up at his place. And I was like, well, obviously he's into me and is, I was like very excited about it. And then I got too wasted and forgot that I was lactose intolerant. And I licked too much whipped cream off of people's bodies. And I got really ill and Roy had to drive me home. And then put me to bed and did nothing because you're a stand-up guy. But I was very disappointed afterwards.
Yeah, so it took another month before we actually connected. Yeah.
So it's a miracle you two ever got together, from what I hear.
Yeah.
I mean, she was consistent, and eventually I got the message. and I think that it was more because she lived in a different town at the time, so I just didn't think it was realistic to even start anything.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. There are other circumstances there.
Yeah. And then there was this one time, so my previous relationship that I mentioned that didn't end well, there was a lot of kind of jealousy and outbursts of kind of negative energy. And I think that made me quite, I guess, fearful of talking about certain things up front. And generally everything was fine. But then there was this one time where I was going to meet someone for lunch that I had met at an after party a few days before. And I wasn't even interested in her necessarily. It was just like a friendship thing, but we met in kind of a sexy after party. So when Jessie, she was actually staying in my house at the time, and she asked me where I'm going, and I said I'm going to a business meeting, which I had after that lunch. And I didn't mention I'm seeing this person. And on the way there and back, I was like trying to understand, like, why didn't I just tell her? I know it's not going to be a problem. Why was I worried about telling her I'm going to meet someone that I just met because she's a woman? And I kind of thought about it on the way there, and on the way back realized that it's this experience I had of the past relationship where even when there was like an innocent meeting with somebody, my ex would like get quite upset and kind of turn it into a crisis. And somehow that blocked me from just being totally upfront. So when I came back, as uncomfortable as it was, and even it wasn't even relevant because even if I never told Jessie, like, it wouldn't matter, right? But I think that the principle of radical honesty has to be there all the time. And it's so important for a relationship to maintain that level of high trust that we have. So I just sat her down. I remember going, Jessie, I have to talk to you.
You terrified me.
You freaked out because you thought it was going to be something really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and I just explained everything, and you were very understanding.
It's like, I don't care.
This was going to be a way bigger deal. I thought
it was just lunch.
It was just lunch. Well, thank you for sharing those stories. And yeah, they're fun. Well, maybe not all fun in the moment, but they're fun to reflect on.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that either of you would like to share and get out in the world? I know we want to give Roy a minute to talk about your coaching and everything, but before we get there.
No.
Okay. Well, I went through a bit of a crisis last year because of COVID, and that led me to go on some courses. I did a radical honesty retreat. I did a nonviolent communication course. I did a weekend course in psychosynthesis, which is a modality of psychotherapy. And I just, decided to turn that despair that I was feeling into something more positive and signed up to begin a psychotherapy training. And the other thing was that for the last few years, I've been pretty engaged in the community, organizing various events, running consent workshops, volunteering at different parties, and moderating some Facebook groups around polyamory. And I realized I want to do more in that space. And with all the training that I've been doing and talking to a lot of people through the talks that I've been running, I thought that I can maybe help people avoid some of the mistakes that I've made, some of the errors in judgment that I've had, and help people discover that there is a healthy way of doing non-monogamy that involves learning a lot about yourself first, and then learning the building blocks of effective, honest communication, of setting healthy boundaries and respecting boundaries and all of that. So I've set myself up with online tools, with a social media account. So I mainly post on Instagram at Open Relating. And I launched last month a website called openrelating.love, and where I can blog and write more kind of longer articles. And I also launched at the end of last year a course called Relationships, REAL. And it's a 5-week kind of intensive program with 2-hour workshops every week, where we go through this journey together of discovering our authentic self, what are our needs, our values, and then developing the boundaries, understanding how to communicate with a partner, how to design the relationship that's really right for you. So also we do that through deprogramming and unlearning a lot of monogamy myths and expectations that we grow up with, and then learning the building blocks of an effective kind of connected but still autonomous relationship. And just kind of exploring what are the relationship kind of dynamics and variations that are out there, including around sexuality and kink and stuff like that. So yeah, it's really exciting, and I hope to reach people who are not quite sure if this is the right thing for them, or have tried it but found it really difficult for different reasons, and maybe are blocked because of the way that they grew up with, kind of learning a lot of socialized norms around monogamy. So,
yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you so much for sharing that as well. And links to everything, like your website, Instagram, will be in our show notes. And so if anyone's curious and wants to learn more about your courses or your coaching or anything, they can go find the links there. And yeah, thank you again for sharing.
Yeah.
And for all of your hard work. That's a lot of work.
And thank you both for coming on and reaching out and being here and sharing everything you both shared today. It was awesome meeting you both. So thank you.
Yes.
And I guess we can it's later on your end of the world, so we'll let you get along with your evening, and we're going to eat some lunch.
Yeah.
I think we're going to go for ice cream. Or I'm going to go for ice cream.
It's been really enjoyable, and thank you for all those questions. It actually helped bring out a lot of things.
And don't forget you're lactose intolerant, Jessie. So make sure it's lactose.
Yes, it's vegan ice creams.
Perfect.
Just looking out for you. So
thank you.
Enjoy that and have a wonderful evening. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
And we're back. Thank you so much to Roy and Jessie for reaching out and sharing your story. We love talking to you, and we're excited to get this out into the world. Yeah,
and a reminder, Roy's got that workshop coming up this weekend, May 30th, 2021. So check out the links in the show notes on that. We're excited to get the word out about his work that he's doing. So
yeah, links in the show notes to all of the work. His upcoming course starting on June 27th as well.
Yep. And we just wanted to give you guys a little bit more. You guys, look at me being all Midwest.
I know.
Sorry. We wanted to give you all a little more information.
It's kind of a habit, and we're trying to break it.
We wanted to give you all a little bit more information on what Patreon is. So if you're looking for community, if you're looking for other people who are open-minded, maybe starting to explore non-monogamy yourself, anyway, you're just looking for support, check out our Patreon community. There's over 165, almost 170 members. It keeps growing, and it's super supportive. It's been a lifeline for Emma and myself the last year. We've made some wonderful friends. We've seen amazing friendships and support come out of this. And so, yeah, a huge thank you to everyone who makes it such a great community, and we'd love to have you check it out and join.
Yes. And a quick reminder, the Q&A for our next monthly Q&A is tonight, May 26th. We'll also have one in June if you happen to miss tonight's. And our next women's group call is June 9th and men's group call is June 7th. So
it's the perfect time to join, because you could join today, try out the Q&A. If you're like, this community sucks, you just cancel.
Yes, that's true.
And it costs you like $5.
We do not take it personally if you don't like it.
Emma doesn't take it personally.
Okay, Finn does a little bit. Okay, that's it. I think next week,
we've got an awesome interview.
As always,
with Philip.
Yes.
So come back next week for that. We're excited to, see you in a week. And if you're in the U.S., have a good Memorial Day weekend.
That's true. Coming up soon. Long weekend.
If you're not in the U.S., well, sorry you got to work on Monday.
True. Who knows? There's probably another Monday holiday in other countries.
Especially if you're like in Germany. They have a holiday every Monday.
Yes, they do. I know.
So I'm a little bitter from my days working with a German company.
They have lots of holidays.
I'll drop it.
Okay. I think that's it. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.